Parkcast, the UK's original theme park podcast.
Welcome back to Parkcast, Park fans. As you know by now, we are a podcast for theme park fans. So if that's you, you're very welcome to join us here. We're here every week just having a bit of chat about things going on in the theme park world, things that we've noticed and things that are worth discussion. I'm Bex, this is Kev.
Hi everyone.
And this week, we're delighted to be joined by Andy Hine, of course, chairman of the Roller Coaster Club of Great Britain.
Hello to you all.
Not your first rodeo with us, but the last time you were here, we were talking about your sort of journey as a roller coaster enthusiast and setting up the Coaster Club and things like that. This time, we're here with a slightly more downbeat story because we're going to be covering Oakwood, which I know is a park that meant loads to you, and what kind of went wrong there. Before we get into that, though, the last time you were here, you were just about to head off to America for your big USA trip. How did that go?
Well, the trip went really well, although, of course, we deliberately started the trip at Cedar Point so we could be, we were going to be the first group ever to have an exclusive ride session on Top Thrill 2. We became the first group ever to stand next to it and watch it not running.
Oh,
so,
no.
But the park were fantastic. They put us onto Millennium Force for an hour, which is you probably get much more fun and more rides out of that than you would on Top Thrill.
Yeah.
And they slipped us onto Steel Vengeance, which sorted out the hardcore from the not so hardcore riders, because it's a pretty intense ride. But Blue Streak was running, proving again wood is good. So not all bad.
Didn't have any problem with the Woody. It must be heartbreaking though. Like, as an enthusiast, you go all the way to a park, especially in America, for a brand new, well, almost brand new roller coaster, and you're stood next to it and you can't get on it.
No, I think when you're planning the trips, I always try and get lots of parks. So that trip had 14 parks, over 120 coasters. So
wow.
If a coaster's not running, there's plenty of others.
Yeah.
But obviously the downside was it was Top Thrill 2. It was the big new thing. But of course, you take that chance. You either get there early in its operation, life operation, in the hope that it's running, but you risk it having some issues, teething issues, which happens to everything. Air or Galactica had lots of teething issues the first season and so on. So you take a chance. You might be lucky, you might not. On this occasion, we weren't. But what it does mean is, of course, next year's USA trip, we have to go back and try again.
You have to.
What a shame.
Yeah.
Did you manage to get on the King Dakar, Andy?
I'd done King Dakar many times, so I was very fortunate. It wasn't the best example, particularly compared to the original Dragster. The one thing Dragster had over King Dakar had boosters to get you up and over that top hat. Dragster didn't. One shot, and it either made it or it didn't. And I was really lucky. In its lifetime, I had 7 rollbacks on it.
Oh my goodness!
And of course, on King Dakar, you would never get a single rollback because that booster at the end just made sure it went up and over.
Can you see a future for these strata coasters then, Andy? Because obviously, with issues with Top Thrill 2, King Dakar closing, is there a lifespan on these things? Do you think
the biggest problem with these type of rides, they're very expensive to buy. And they're very, very expensive to operate. They need a lot of electricity, and the cost of electricity is not cheap. Plus, the throughput isn't the best. You can't keep pushing out trains of 30 riders every few seconds. So it is the thing. It's a one hit wonder. It's you do it, at the end of it, you think, wow. What's next?
Yeah.
Whereas if I can mention wooden coasters, like I occasionally do, at the end of that ride,
just
you
occasionally
think, you go, wow, that was brilliant. Let's have another ride on it, and so on. So they promote a different emotion, and I think it's a limited emotion. And of course, it does scare off some people, because if you look at a traditional wooden coaster or things like the big one, things like that, they're a whole circuit, and so whereas the imposing height of things like Top Thrill and King Dakar would have put some people off as well. So,
yeah.
But
we're getting one at Blackpool, though, aren't we? Getting a top hat strata coaster at Blackpool?
We're back on this again.
About 20 years, hasn't it?
I saw all the plans. It went across the bit.
Hang on, whoa,
hang on. Okay,
stop.
wait.
You saw the plans?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
No.
Okay,
So
right. Okay.
we've been having this discussion on this podcast for
Okay.
about 6 months because I mentioned that I remember that rumor coming out. It must have been 20 years ago, at least. And I said, I don't know if it was just enthusiasts working themselves up.
Yeah, we thought it was
No,
just something that was like could you imagine?
the station was going to be, you remember the Hearts and Diamonds ride inside the arcade? The station was on the roof of that. It went across the promenade in a tube because you couldn't distract the motorists on the promenade. Out to sea, did the top hat and back.
On its own pier.
Yeah.
This is what I was saying. Everyone was saying there was no way that was ever planned. And I was like, well, that was the rumor.
Well, what you got to think is, though, parks know how to play the game too. All they've got to do, I mean, and this is long before podcasts and TikTok and everything. So they've just sow a few seeds and the rumors get started and word spreads quickly. And it did its job, didn't it? It promoted something that wasn't there, but it got people interested in going to Blackpool.
You look so happy.
I'm just
that because you've been saying this about this rumor.
I
And everyone
have.
was just
I've been saying it for so long. I know. And in those days, like you say, we were on forums, we were on Rideas, Ultimate Roller Coaster. That's where we were. We were having these little chats. And this was the rumor. And then everyone was like, there was no way that was ever going to happen. But now you're telling me that there's a chance that it might have done.
Well, I don't think it was ever a genuine.
No, I'm not having it.
But
there was a plan.
But they certainly wanted to get some publicity and rumors going on it.
Wow.
That's amazing. Okay, well, moving swiftly on, although I don't want to leave that behind because
talking about Amanda Thompson, weren't we, the other week? That she's quite a formidable person. I think if there's anyone who's going to be able to,
I do genuinely think she gets a bad rap.
Yeah.
A lot of the abuse she gets online, certain groups where that are a bit affiliated to Blackpool, she does get a bad rap on there. The comments they make, I think this is not playing Roller Coaster Tycoon or No Limits.
Yeah, exactly.
You are talking millions of pounds of investment. This is a private company, a private family-run company. So if she spends money on a ride, that they have to make that money to spend it. It's not they're not getting it from shareholders who are buying multiple shares in the company and so on, like Merlin. They don't have to respond to shareholders. So when they invest money, it's a risk to them because one bad investment could end the company, could close the park, and that's what we don't want. So I think that these people they spout things out without thinking, which is easy to do online, of course, but they need to sit back sometimes and think of the investments. It costs every time electricity goes up. That park needs a lot of electricity. It costs thousands of pounds more a week to keep rides running. Very soon, national insurance contributions are going up. That park employs hundreds of people. That means that it's going to have a wage bill of thousands of pounds more. All this money has to be made somehow. It has to be. They have to make that money in to pay those bills. Otherwise, they have to start closing rides, which they've announced they're having to do. They're not just doing it to annoy people. They're doing it so that the company, the park, can stay running and operating. So I don't ever comment back because I'll end up in an online war. But they really need to think before they start being so negative. When they say she needs to go and replace her with someone else and so on, she is been brought up in that park. Her entire life has been that park. She is so passionate about it and the success of it. And while she might make some decisions that enthusiasts don't like, it's not there just for enthusiasts. It's there for the public as well. And it has to make money to survive. So,
I've just done a video on this exact same thing, actually. It's just as a reminder that as enthusiasts, our experience is not that of the general public, and
we are that percentage.
We're tiny, and to most people, going to a theme park even more than once a year is a crazy notion. If they go once, it's like cool. They don't go time and time and time again. They might go once every 3 years. Like it's that often, and it's really easy to get caught up in our world where it's something that we just go and do on a weekend, every other weekend or something. But it's not a normal reality for most people who visit them.
And like I said, there is no reset button, and I'll just click this little icon to put in a new ride.
Yeah.
There's a lot of process, years of planning. You have to plan for, they have a short term, long term, medium term, long term plan of things that are going to happen, and all of those need to be assessed, risk assessed, cost assessed, structurally assessed. Bear in mind, Pleasure Beach is built on a beach.
Yeah.
You don't go down very far before you're in sand.
Yeah.
So whereas a ride stuck on a piece of concrete in a Six Flags park would cost one price, the same ride put in the Pleasure Beach would cost twice as much because the foundations need to be so much more, and so on. All these things that enthusiasts don't take into account when they're playing their games, or when they're commenting abuse at the Pleasure Beach.
It's a really valid point, and it kind of leads us neatly onto what we're talking about today, which in the main is the closure of Oakwood, which, going back not that long, was another family-owned, family-run park, a park which started from very humble beginnings, and grew into something which was really cherished by enthusiasts and the general public. So for me, I grew up in South Wales. It was my local park. It was where we went on every school trip, long before Megafobia was built as well. And I know that's the case for you as well, Andy. You've been a visitor to that park for years and years and years.
Yeah, I visited the park long before Megaphobia, and it was a fun park then. It had its petting zoo and toboggan ride, and of course they put in tree toppers, which was a standard little zero type coaster, but in the trees made it just that little bit more thrilling, because you've got the branches whizzing above you, so you've got that impending head chopper feel, which is all part of the illusion of the ride. It's not, you're not at any risk, but it gives you that. So it was a fun park, and when you think it was a couple of farmers who had done that, and eventually they needed to put a signature ride in, and they needed something different because they didn't have the funds for a big B&M coaster to put them on the map.
And this was 1996, wasn't it, when Megaphobia
opened in six? But the discussion started a few years before.
So we'd seen Nemesis, though. We'd seen Nemesis be built.
We'd seen Nemesis. We'd seen that
Shockwave had opened.
1994 Year of the Coasters, which the English Tourist Board recognised, and we ran that campaign where you had to go to all the parks and get stamps, and then win a T-shirt and stuff. But yeah, so they needed something different. We've got the hanging coaster, we've got the highest coaster, and we've got the stand-up coaster. What haven't we had for over 30 years? A wooden coaster. Bam! That's the decision made, and at the time it was CCI, of course. They were desperate to get something in the UK. Talking to Denise and Charlie, they were so desperate to get something in the UK, and they gave me lots of information to give to parks to try and encourage them.
Were you like their little sales guy?
Well, I'd already started the Real Coasters Are Made of Wood campaign to harass Merlin.
It's always really interested me that a park like Oakwood managed to get such a good wooden coaster.
Yeah.
But do you think that was simply because no one else was building them? So all the emphasis was at Oakwood on this one wooden coaster, and it kind of stood out.
It was the first wooden coaster in 30 odd years of its type, because the park couldn't afford a big B&M coaster or any record breaking coaster. This was all it needed to be something unique and different. And CCI didn't always make the best coasters, wooden coasters. They had a few not so good, but this one just got it right. Everything about it was right. The park themselves had to do some modifications prior to opening. There was some cutbacks to make some extra money by contractors, so the park had to invest them. But by doing that, it just tightened up the ride to make it that fantastic coaster that it was. And they used to run 2 trains on it, and it didn't matter what the weather was like. Wales is, as you would know, Bex, Wales is never, not always the sunniest of climates. It just ran, and of course, after it had a rainfall and there was some water on the track, it flew around there so far. So they just literally got it right first time.
Yeah.
It was almost like with Formula One season starting. a brand new car designer coming along, and everybody's saying, well, you should have put in a B&M, should have done this, and they suddenly put a car on the track that won the first Grand Prix.
Yeah.
Oakwood just got it right. The layout, the feeling on the ride, it just captured what we wanted, and
Absolutely.
it certainly showed people in the local area who were familiar with the park. Wow, wooden coasters have moved on a bit, and they are just as thrilling as a modern steel coaster.
I said to Bex the other week, because I grew up in Derby, so Drayton Manor, Alton Towers, American Adventure were my local parks, and we never really went into Wales. If you go into a theme park, Oakwood was kind of out of the way.
Yeah.
It wasn't really had that drawing appeal to it, but then suddenly this new coaster suddenly brought everyone's attention onto it.
Yeah.
And then I remember you did your Coaster Week on Rise on Channel 5 back in 2002 or something like that. And that was when I finally got to see this wooden coaster. I was like, how have I not been here yet? And so it was, that roller coaster really that got my attention going to Oakwood. And once you've been on it, you're like, great, you've got to keep going back because this is one of the best wooden coasters.
Yeah.
At that time, next to the Grand National for me, it was like, I've been to Blackpool, I've been on these wooden coasters, but there was something unique about it. Definitely.
Well, and another TV program I did was with Jack Dee, the comedian, who's very deadpan. And the challenge was I had to make him smile, not with my jokes, but and so we took him to Oakwood for the day and got him on Megaphobia. But behind the scenes, he's not meant to smile. That's the whole premise of the program.
Yeah.
He's not meant to smile. But we had to film so many times because every time we went round on Megaphobia, he laughed and smiled because he enjoyed it. And he said he'd never ridden one before. And it just said, see, that's the emotion it makes you have. And once he'd finally got used to the ride, then he could ride it without showing it. Because the idea is he was just that straight face all the way around.
Yeah.
And Andy, why do you do this all the time? This is so. But prior to the shot that was used in the program, we had to go around so many times because he loved it. He couldn't stop smiling on it.
That's amazing. Do you remember your first ride on it?
I did. I was fortunate to go before opening to do some testing, and whenever you go on a new ride for the first time, as enthusiasts, we have a good idea of how a ride's going to feel. Of course, a B&M from an Intamin to a Vekoma.
They're much better now. They're much better.
They are new Vekoma, superb. But and of course, when you get down to hardcore wood enthusiasts, you know your GCIs from your Gravity Groups, from your Roller Coaster Corporation of America, to your Millers, Travers, and so on. And so I had an idea of how it would ride. What I wasn't prepared for, how much fun it would be, because at the end of the ride, when it hits those brakes, for those who've ridden it, it hits those brakes. It's you just look at whoever's next to you and just think, wow, that was fantastic. And not many rides, brand new rides, have that effect because I've already imagined what it's going to be like. But this one it just caught me out. And just the setting as well. You're in there's the trees around you. There's sheep in the structure of the ride. The lake that's next to it, and so on. This is before Bluestones, of course, as well. So there was rolling fields everywhere. So what a wonderful setting. You're not seeing a city. You're not seeing the parking lot. You're just seeing nature, and wood is part of nature. So you're just experiencing it. It was just everything about it was just perfect. So the moment when we came into the station, I said to William, so it was Paddy and William who were the owners at the time, the McNamara's. I said to William, this is fantastic. And we are going to be, as soon as this opens, I'm going to have a club event here.
Yeah.
And he said, how many people do you think will come? And I said, I don't know, but I think it'll be a big crowd.
Yeah. And it was, presumably.
And it was. I called the event, I played a little play on the name. I called it Oakwoody.
Okay, yeah.
It wasn't Oak Steel. And over 200 members attended, and it was so popular it was the only time we've ever done the same trip again the same year.
Wow.
So we went early in the season and we went later in the season, and we did that 3 years running. We don't even do that at Blackpool. I was getting 200 to 300 people every time. Over the years, I've taken over 5,000 people to the park, and it's evolved, of course. When they opened Drenched Hydro, I changed the name. I bought in the name. I dropped Oakwood and became Mega Mania.
Yes.
Because obviously we were there for Megaphobia and we were maniacs on it, so Mega Mania. And then they opened Hydro, so I changed the name for 1 year only to Mega. Oh, what did I call it? Mega Splash Mania. I only did it for 1 year because we had an exclusive ride session on that. It doesn't matter how many, once you're wet the first time, it doesn't matter how many times you go on it then because you're wet.
Yeah.
That's it then, isn't it?
Yeah.
But then I decided that I wanted to keep that long name, so I changed the middle bit from Splash to Glow. And it became Mega Glow Mania. And I told everybody, because our second exclusive ride session of the day, because we do Megaphobia in the morning, was at night in the dark, everybody had to get those glow sticks that you wear around your neck, around your wrists. And I then bought some disco down. I bought some speakers, and it became the biggest party we've ever had. When you've got 200 people on a coaster platform and on the trains, going round with music playing, light lasers, smoke machines, and people dancing on the platform waiting for their go, and people on the ride doing YMCA in the coaster train up the lift. It was an amazing fit. You'd never get that in any other park because nobody would ever let us do that normally. But Oakwood just they appreciated what we were doing, and the support we were giving, and we just had so much fun there. That's one of the things we're going to miss. It's our biggest exclusive ride session.
Yeah. I actually went to that event in 2018, which was the wettest day I've ever had at a theme park. It was considering it was August, it didn't stop raining all day. But like you say, that exclusive ride session in the night at the end, because of the way Megaphobia ran and because it had been raining all day, it was flying around those tracks. It was ridiculously fast, and there was no lights anywhere else on the coaster. So like you say, the platform's all lit up, but on the coaster itself, it's pitch black.
We used to let the park used to let members camp as well.
Yeah, that's what I did. Terrible decision.
And we called it Camp Oakwood, but that year I think we called it Camp Soakwood.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. And I remember you saying, "Oh, I'm booked into the travel lodge or something."
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not camping.
I don't do camping. It's too intense.
Oh, nice.
I'm here all week.
After you had that first ride with William McNamara, and presumably he was delighted with it as well, and he loved what had been created. What do you think his instincts were and his plans were for the park, like going forward from that point?
Well, they obviously needed to be sure that was a success and see that was the biggest investment they had made. I can't give you the exact figure, but I'll tell you that what they paid for it was a lot less than what the refurbishment of it cost.
Oh, really?
So they got it cheap.
I heard that actually, because CCI wanted a benchmark coaster in Europe.
Because then it was easy to bring people over from other parks in Europe to Oakwood and say, this is what we can do, and in whatever way you like.
Yeah.
So they got it for a good price, but again, they are two brothers. They need to make some money back on that investment. It's the biggest investment they've made ever. You've got to get the money back. Of course, it did. So then things started to develop. They were able to put in Vertigo, the old Sky Coaster, which are falling out of favour worldwide at the moment.
I hated that ride.
Yeah, they're disappearing in all the parks over the world now.
What a shame.
Yeah, but they wanted a unique spinning ride that wasn't in the country. So I told them to get the Larsen Eagles ride, which is the sail.
Oh, Plane Crazy.
Crazy.
Yeah,
became Tinkerbell's. Because there was none of those in it. Because and then they started to develop certain areas, and of course William parted from the company to start a new project, leaving Paddy in complete charge. And then they put in Bounce and Speed and so on. So they were becoming quite a formidable. I mean, there's a lot of investment in that park.
Yeah.
And considering where it is, it had a lot more than a lot of parks
Mm.
in main England.
Mm.
So it was good, and you could go there on any day, and it was busy.
Yeah.
Mm.
The queue for Megaphobia used to be all the way around the zigzags, down past the lake, and to the big letter M that you walked under.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it was becoming it was a quite a world player on the park front
It
for
was always
small.
really well
Um,
kept as well, wasn't it? It was a nice park to be in.
yeah, because of this, all there was a lot of natural the grass, the trees and stuff. It just had that lovely setting, and they made a lot of effort to make everything blend in.
Mm.
Using the terrain, Oakwood uses the terrain. The toboggan ride uses
Bobsleigh, yeah.
the bobsleighs uses
Yeah.
that natural hillside.
Mm.
The water rides are in the trees. Everything just fitted in nicely. It
Yeah.
felt like a it hadn't just been thrown together.
Yeah.
Some parks in America, we won't mention Six Flags, but some parks in America, Six Flags, it's almost like they bought a piece of land, put concrete over it, and how many rides can we put in?
Mm.
And they have no feeling, they've no soul about them. Then there's no heart to them.
Yeah.
It's almost a parking lot of thrill rides.
Yeah.
Mm. Love the surrounding part of Oakwood. Like there was the boating lake at the bottom of Megaphobia,
Yeah.
wasn't there?
Well, they used to have that island there as well, which Tiki Bar or something
Yeah.
on it and stuff,
Hmm.
where you could stop and have a drink while people were doing the pedalos around you, and the roar of Megaphobias that came down the first
Mm.
drop. It was just it was that was the heyday.
Yeah.
That was that was the good old years.
Did you ever fall off backwards on waterfall?
Um, yes.
Is there anyone who's not?
Well, because when it was privately owned, rules weren't quite so strict, Tim. So we had one of our club days. We had an arms up challenge.
No.
Oh,
You had to come
wow.
down. You had to come down waterfall without holding the sledge. You had to have your arms in the air.
That's not possible.
I can't
Well,
see how that
there
would work.
there were people who did. Yeah. Uh,
Wow.
I tried it, and the moment I hit the water, it flipped over, and I was in the water. And the person next to me, who's also called Andy, so it was the two Andys got very wet. But it was yeah, it was. If you didn't get wet, you weren't trying hard enough, were you?
Mm.
It's little attractions like that I'm really going to miss though, because you just know it's not going to get moved
No,
anywhere. It's not going to get built
Yeah.
again.
They used to have that vertical slide as well.
Yeah.
in
Yeah,
the
we
shed.
said that. Yeah,
Yeah,
we
the
did.
sky
Yeah, we said,
leap.
didn't we? Yeah.
Yeah, and I used to stand on the ledge and just step forward because you knew that the curve would slow you down.
Yeah. I remember when speed was installed as well. Again, that was another reason why you were like, oh, Oakwood,
Yeah.
look what Oakwood are doing. Because you'd go back for Megaphobia, but they were doing something new. It was
Yeah.
the first time I'd seen, vertical lift hill, because it was before Saw and, all these other ones.
Yeah.
And again, it was a really unique ride that I'd never done before. And it just added something else to Oakwood because it was on a very separate part to where Megaphobia was. It
Yeah.
kind of spread the park out a bit. So
it
you were
used
in a different,
That was the go-kart track originally.
yeah. And
Yes.
so it kind of opened up the space a bit more because then you had treetops that side and then Megaphobia on the other side and drenched down at near the front. So it was a nice way of it opening up the park as well. And it just made me go, oh, Oakwood are still, doing stuff.
Yeah, and you could get a nice bacon butty right next to the ride there at speed as well in the morning.
That's all you need. Obviously, as well, they started doing their after dark events. That
Yes.
had been something which made it quite special as well. There wasn't many parks in the UK doing late night opening. Blackpool did them a fair bit,
Yeah.
but Merlin weren't really doing it apart from sometimes around their October events.
No,
So
and it was really
different.
successful.
Yeah.
The park was packed. They had the live shows, the fireworks, the dancing. Then it became the paint party,
Yeah.
and so on. People came in especially for that. I think part where things started to change was hydro.
Yeah.
I did say share my views at the time, thinking I think it was the wrong ride.
Yeah, I agree.
That is a Six Flags Cedar Fair type ride, and it was the only one in the country of that type. I know Saw had its tidal wave ride, but this was the more vertical version. But the weather in Wales does not always encourage people to want to go on a ride that they're going to get. So of course
Absolutely soaked, yeah.
it didn't have the support, and it's expensive to run, pumping water up, and so it's not a cheap ride to run. And I think that maybe a smaller log flume would have been better, where you get splashed but not drenched.
Yeah.
And remember, this is pre the log flume they've got now.
Yeah.
But just a smaller log flume. You can get if you're familiar with Funland at Hale and Line, you can even get small travelling type log flumes.
Yeah.
And it would have just been a water ride, and on a sunny day, it would have been great to go on and get splashed to cool off a bit.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have got drenched, and it wouldn't have cost so much to buy, and it wouldn't cost so much to run. So I think that was where it started to think it. No disrespect to Paddy, but it was trying to be a park that it wasn't there. I thought it was the wrong type of ride.
Yeah.
I would have, as I say, rather a log flume and maybe a twister or a waltzer or something that helps keep the fun element going. Because down the road at Folly Farm, the Vintage Fun Fair is so popular.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, actually, Folly Farm, because a lot of people have said part of the reason for this demise at Oakwood is its location, which you can't deny it is, it's a long way from big areas of populace. There's not a huge city nearby. But Folly Farm's doing really well.
Yeah, and I think it's Folly Farm, I think, fed off Oakwood. And then got more popular, and then Oakwood ended up feeding off of Folly Farm. And you've got Heatherton's down the road, which is another great attraction, but obviously tries to keep that's more the hands-on adventure type thing with the go apey type things and the karting and the clay pigeon shooting and so on. And Folly Farm was the animals with a few rides, and Oakwood was the big amusement park. And then Folly Farm, I mean, it's such an inappropriate name now. It should be Folly Safari Park now, because farms do not have zebras, giraffes, and tigers or lions and things. So and rhinoceroses. It is a proper safari park now. But their Vintage Fun Fair just gives them that extra thrill now as well, because it's a bit of nostalgia. And going back to what we were saying earlier about children won't recognise a wooden coaster because if they haven't been to the few we've got left, travelling fairs are getting fewer and fewer. Here's their chance to see some thrill rides that are traditional, and if you watch them on it, they love it. When I rent that fair for our club there. Of course, we have a private fair party. When I look at the younger members, the 5-6-year-olds who are getting because they get caught up in the atmosphere. When they go with parents, it's a bit scary, but when they get caught up with the atmosphere and all the members of their age range are going on, they get caught up in it. And you see them get off loving it, and they just want to do it again. And because it's an exclusive fair session, they just run around and go again. They're loving it, and I just think it just caught something. They caught the imagination, and Oakwood just something changed. And
do you think it was when it was sold that it really changed?
Well, it got obviously Paddy sold it, and he sold it to a corporate company, but not so known in this country, and not known for amusement parks so well either. They were more of an aquarium, a sea life type company. So they did not have the track record of running amusement parks. I mean, if you imagine if Merlin had bought Oakwood, which I don't think would have been good, but if Merlin had bought Oakwood, the changes would have been different.
Yeah.
And we certainly wouldn't have been having our discos on the coaster, because that would have been ended immediately. But anyway, so at least Hasbro allowed us to carry on. They were very well. You've done this for years. You carry on doing the things you do. So it did not change our events at all. They were happy, and that's partly all the managers that were put in there were UK managers. They weren't sent over from Spain. They were people who knew us. Knew the industry. So Dominic Jones, Andy Highgate, who's still very much involved with enthusiast, because he organises all those events up at the Blackpool Pleasure Beach, where he's now the operations director. So from our point of view, it's perfect, because everybody every new manager knew me and knew what the club was. And then Phil, the most recent one and longest serving manager there, was very familiar with us and what we do. But they're not the owners, and so they can only do what the parent company allows them to do. And I know from talking to Phil, particularly most recently, there are things he would have liked to have done to improve things and get things back on track. But the money wasn't there and the support wasn't there as much as he would have liked. And when your hands are tied, it's very difficult. You have to go with what you've got. And then, of course, because of internet nowadays, everybody's got a voice. And with TripAdvisor and things, it only took one or two comments. Whereas somebody might have said to their colleague, "Don't go there because."
Yeah.
Now they put it online, and then it prompts everybody to go, "Oh yeah, I went and I noticed," and then everybody suddenly becomes a critic.
Yeah.
And then people who've never been there read that and think, "Oh, we won't go there," and they see Folly Farm reports that say it's fantastic, so we'll go there. If we're in Wales for a few days on holiday, we'll go there then. And of course it causes a decline, and sometimes that's a bit unfair because one person's opinion might not be the same as everybody else's, but people believe everything they read now.
Yeah.
And they don't realise sometimes the damage they're doing. And this goes back to what we were saying about enthusiasts being negative to Amanda. And they don't realise that people believe everything and they won't go and see for themselves. And if we could have got more people to go to Oakwood and the figures look good, then the parent company over in Spain says it's going well. We need to put some more money in to get these in and so on. And it would have we could have done something about it. But when people are being so negative all the time, I mean, I saw something online the other day. I did an article in the Metro. And,
I saw that, Andy. I did see it, yeah.
And it was support your parks, whatever park, support them because otherwise they'll be in the same boat. And somebody commented on the article in the Metro saying, "I live in Northumberland or somewhere like that. It would take me longer to get to Oakwood than it would take me to fly to Australia." I thought, well, that's fine, but that's a stupid comment.
Yeah.
Because I'm telling you, you need to, if you're living in Northumberland, and you need to go to Flamingo Land or Lightwater Valley or the parks you've got your way. Otherwise, they're going to end up saying, I'm not saying everybody in the world has to suddenly visit Oakwood.
Yeah.
It's too late.
Yeah.
It's closed. And so on. It's just saying, if you just keep saying bad things about these parks, the knock-on effect means that people won't go. And then the park doesn't make money, and then the park closes down.
I mean, they did obviously with the money they spent refurbing Megaphobia, so they'd obviously try to maintain because they knew how special that ride was. Try to do something, didn't they?
Yeah, the company did not want to lose that park, and they didn't buy it to then spend money and close it, and particularly spend £2 million making a ride as good as new, and then close the park. It did not bring in the footfall again. And unfortunately, of course, we're in a bad time at the moment as well. It's a lot of uncertainty in the world. I hate the term the cost of living crisis, but if I live in London, do I go to Thorpe Park, which I can do in the same day, because it's only 10 miles from me, or do I drive 250 miles to Oakwood, where I've got to then spend a night in a hotel as well? Now, I would do that because I know what I'm after, and Thorpe is lacking what I want, a wooden coaster. So I'm going to go to Oakwood. But your average member of the public who lives in the West London area, or the two choices would be Oakwood or Thorpe. They're going to choose Thorpe, especially when Thorpe's going, we've got the newest and the highest roller coaster in the country, and so on. So it's really difficult to and parks like Merlin have phenomenal marketing budgets. They know how to. They've got their online channels. They're everywhere. They're on cereal packets, and so they know how they know how to do marketing and market well, and they know how to do teaser marketing. When they were teasing what was happening with Nemesis, all these things, they build up the hype massively. Sometimes it goes wrong. 13 in particular, the hype was built up so much that when people got off the ride, they thought, "Was that it?" I was expecting much more. They had the marketing where you had to sign a disclaimer to say that if you died, and so on. And you could pay
You
£1
have
for
to have
life insurance.
a doctor's
Yeah,
letter to say you were
yeah,
healthy enough to ride it.
yeah. So it doesn't always work, but they are good at marketing. Oakwood does not have the same marketing budget, which is why some of the reports I've read online, when you see it, some people have said, "What? Oakwood? Never heard of it." And so because they can't be, they don't have the funds to get on, to get nationwide publicity, other than through enthusiasts, of course, because most genuine enthusiasts will know Oakwood.
And I think a lot of us, particularly in the UK theme park industry, as a general public, I think we're always looking for what's the next new thing.
Yes.
We're always after, well, what's the next big thing that's being built? What's the new thing at this park? And then if a park like Oakwood haven't got the money then to keep investing in lots of new things, you almost, like you say, Andy, you kind of forget about it unless you're an enthusiast and you go because I love Megaphobia and you go back there to go on that ride. But you know, unfortunately, some of these parts then get forgotten about because it becomes a struggle to compete,
Yeah.
almost, isn't it? Because we can see on our adverts on social media, oh, look what this park, this is new, this is new, this is new. But then Oakwood doesn't get mentioned because,
No.
you know, there's
It,
nothing new happening
no. And
and
if you look at
gets forgotten.
investments, since Ashbro took over Oakwood, they say that how much they've invested since they took over. Alton Towers, Blackpool Pleasure Beach, and Thorpe Park spent that same amount of money on one ride.
Yeah.
It can't
It's really
compete.
small.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it can't compete because you divide their 20 odd million pounds they've invested since they took over. It only works out at I'm saying only as if it's nothing, but it's a massive amount. It only works out to less than £2 million a year.
Yeah.
So it gets very difficult for that park to survive when it's a David and Goliath, but with a bad ending.
It's really self-perpetuating as well, isn't it? Because, like you say, you get the negative reviews, but also when you don't have the investment, if you do visit the park and you go there and Drenched is closed, Bounce is closed,
Yeah.
things are looking a little bit shabby, the ticket prices were quite expensive compared to what Oakwood used to be, then you probably go and think, oh, I've spent my day here, but actually I'm not sure it was worth it.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll come back.
And that's unfortunate. And it's but I like to think, well, if you look at some other parks, I'm not picking on Merlin because I know you get grief for that, but if you go to Merlin, if you haven't got your cornflakes packet 2 for 1
Yeah.
and everything,
Yeah.
it's 50, £60 to get in,
Yeah.
plus your £10 to park your car, and so on. So your family of four could easily spend £200 in there.
Easily. Yeah.
Now it
Yeah.
could be a busy day, and not all the rides run at those parks every day.
No.
So you could
Very
come out
true.
of that park going, we spent £200 and we've done 3 rides.
Yeah.
But you go to Oakwood and a family of four would pay on the price last year would have been about £120 for a family of four. You haven't paid for parking because it was free. Your burger and chips was a fraction of the price of what it would be in a corporate park, but you might have got on 10 rides.
Yeah.
You might not have got hydro and you might not have got bounce, but you'd have been on speed twice. You'd have done tree toppers, the
Yeah.
pirate ship,
Yeah.
you'd have done Megaphobia 3 times, and so on. So when you look at value for money
Yeah.
afterwards, it is actually good value for money.
Yeah. That's a good point.
But people don't stop to look at that sometimes. I mean, my issue with Merlin's car park charges are they're on exit. If I've had a bad day in the park and some of the rides aren't running, you then rub salt in the wounds by saying, and now you've got to give me £10 to get your car out the car park.
Yeah. Yeah.
Charge me at the start of the day, because by the end of the day I've forgotten that then, and it doesn't become another beef that I might have,
Yeah.
and so on. So, or up the price £1 a person and include the car parking,
That's what I wish they would do.
because
Yeah.
places like Alton Towers and Thorpe Park, you really, it's difficult to get to without a car.
You make a good point about it being value for money. But do you think this time last year, did you think we'd be here now?
I mean, the park was looking tired, I would say. It could have done with a bit of TLC. There was hoarding up last year saying coming soon, but not what. And I know
Something,
that
anything.
yeah, I know that the industry is secretive. I signed many non-disclosure agreements to not share what I know. But you need to tease the public with something, a great new thrill ride is coming, or a great new family ride, or something. Because if you start this hoarding and it's all year, and then when the hoarding comes down, it's a new crazy golf course, it isn't going to have the impact.
Yeah.
No.
So you need to do those teasers and things that keep those, because it makes people think, well, we've been here, we had a fun day, a couple of rides weren't running, but they're doing something for next year, so we'll make sure we come back. But you didn't know what you were coming back for. So,
Yeah.
and that's and that goes back down to, of course, the marketing budget was not so good as some of the big parks, but because we don't need a reason to go back. It's already there, called Megaphobia.
Yeah.
But the public, they are looking for a reason to go back. Yeah, because Alton Towers do it really well with giving it the code names. Yeah, SW9's coming next, and it's going to be really something you've never seen before in your life. And people start their rumours and what's it going to be, and then of course you get the enthusiasts causing major problems down at the local planning office, trying to go and see what the plans have been submitted and stuff, and so on. And but it gets the hype going and the excitement, which never quite happened.
You don't want a park to close, obviously, ever.
No.
The thing I found hardest, really, as well as you're thinking about all the people losing their jobs as well. There's people here's lives are affected, because this is quite a selfish reason, but it's more that I was really gutted as well, because I'm thinking I'm never going to get to go on that ride again, and I'm racking my brain back, going, "Oh, if I'd just gone last year, had I known this was potentially on the cards, I would have sat on that ride." Gone around like 5 times just to kind of make sure that I've enjoyed that last go, because once it's gone, that's it, isn't it? And I think that was the hardest thing. I know.
You'd have got 15 rides on it last year.
I know, exactly. I need to
in the
become
dark.
a member.
With a party.
This is me having to become a member now, Andy, isn't it?
Yeah, no, you're right in what you're saying. That if they had known they were going to close, what they could have said was, "This is the last season," and then there would have been a last day that we could have all gone.
Yeah.
And
It probably
ridden
would have
it.
been really busy as well. It would have been
It would
a
have been
busy
the busiest
season for them.
It would have been
It
the
would have
busiest day for 20 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
But which shows you that the park or the owners at that time weren't thinking it was going to close.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just changes that the government with its new taxations on businesses and stuff. They've just had to say, no, we have to cut our losses now, because if we run it this year and we do not get the enough throughput, the whole company might close, which means all of their parks and aquariums would close, and they don't want that. It goes back to Blackpool and Southport, where when people gave Amanda grief for closing Southport, she had 2 choices. I invest loads of money in Southport trying to keep a failing park going, but at the risk of Blackpool Pleasure Beach closing as well, or I'd cut my loss and close that, and we invest everything in the Pleasure Beach and keep that running. You have to make difficult decisions in business. And as I said earlier, it's not Roller Coaster Tycoon. Sometimes we don't like the decisions, but we are not the ones signing the checkbook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or transferring the money for the young people who don't know what a checkbook is.
And there's no way we can, and we had a little chat about this the other week as well, because a friend messaged me who went to Oakwood. He was a big Oakwood fan. He messaged me saying, "Look, is there no way we can save it? Like, what can we do to Megaphobia?" And I did message saying, "Look, Steel Coast like Speed, you can easily, transfer somewhere else, but I wouldn't coast. I don't know, Andy, is there any hope for it? Is there any way we can?"
Likewise, I've seen this online. People saying, "Oh, move it to Drayton Manor Park." It's not a simple case. That Speed is a Meccano kit. You unbolt it, you put it on a lorry or a few lorries, and then you just rebolt it together, because that's how it arrived in the country. But Oakwood didn't arrive in a country like that. It arrived as planks of wood. and this is back to how basic it was. And they screwed those pieces of wood together, or they bolted them together, and so on. It was built from scratch on site. So wooden coasters can be moved. Yes, Phoenix is a prime example. But you're talking that company, Knoebels, when it started, By the way, Knoebels is 100 years old next year. But anyway, that company started as timber merchants. So they know wood.
Yeah.
And so for them, the passion was there and the understanding. They knew to take that ride down in San Antonio, mark it all up. They didn't have plans. They just took photographs and sketches, and they knew how to put it back up again. That's unique. The Knoebels family are unique.
Can we get them to come over here and
Could they look at it? Could they look at Megaphobia and figure out how to do it?
I've sent them an email. But Megaphobia, if you imagine if you just lifted it up with a crane, if you could, or a helicopter, and you took it to Drayton Manor, firstly, there's nowhere for it. There is no space. They would have to get rid of some animal pens, and that would put it out of the park area. It put it in the zoo area, so it's out on its limb there. But if you brought it over in a helicopter and you lower it down, the base isn't flat like Speed. It's the dip is lower than the lift hill, and so on, because it used the terrain. So it needs a lot of modification, a lot of extra wood at the lower section to get it. Plus, it costs a lot of money to move things. When Morecambe closed down, Geoffrey Thompson was selling the ride. I think it was £100,000 for the wooden coaster. So it was very cheap for a wooden coaster. But if you bought it and you wanted to move it to your new park in wherever, Bristol, say, it's going to cost you more than £1 million. This is back in the 90s. It's going to cost you more than £1 million to dismantle it and move it. So your £100,000 suddenly becomes 10 times the cost. And that's going to be the problem with Megaphobia. If it was dismantled and moved, the cost of moving it's going to cost more than calling up GCI and saying, "Can you come and build us a brand new coaster?" It hasn't got that the fame that a park would want to spend more money to move it than it would to have a new one built. So it unfortunately, and I hate to say it, I mean, I've got some of it here. I've got the front of the car here, and there's a wheel over there.
All right, already started dismantling it.
I've had those a few years. That's when they changed it to the new front.
I thought you jumped over the fence and
no, and I'm not supporting that at all.
Yeah, there's a lot of people doing that, aren't there? Going
legal wise, that is trespassing.
Yeah,
but they're also, if they're, as I suspect, they're souvenir hunting. They're stealing things.
It's assets, isn't it?
Which is another theft. Yeah. If, just say, for example, Looping Group, and please, anyone listening, do not get excited. I'm making this up. If Looping Group suddenly called Asbro and said, "All right, we're interested. We'll take it off your hands, cheap," they go down there to do a feasibility check, and bits of rides, not the ones they couldn't easily move, but the ones that are left, bits of rides are stolen, missing. It might affect their offer. They want to go in and say, "Actually, this looks good. Can you just get Megaphobia running for us? Because it was, you can switch it on and it will still run now. Can you get it running for us to show us so we can try it and see if we're interested?" But if Souvenirs have ripped up a bit of track or the control desk or whatever, stuffed.
That's it. Yeah,
because Asbro aren't going to say, "Hang on a minute, we'll just get the engineers to repair it for you so you can try it out." So they need to stop going there.
In terms of the site at Oakwood, what do you realistically think is going to happen to it? Do you think it's going to get bought by Bluestone?
I did laugh at something the other day about somebody said it will now just become a load of flats. And I thought,
not in Pembrokeshire.
This is not London. Oakwood was the only reason that most people ever went to Narberth, apart from the people who lived in Narberth. And that's a lovely town as well. Some great antique shops.
I lived there for a couple of years myself. It's very beautiful. Great bakery.
But it's not. I was going to buy a baker's as well years ago. Yeah, I was. I just couldn't raise the dough.
We walked right into that one, didn't we? We literally walked right into that one. I was thinking, why is Andy Hine buying a bakery for?
But Narberth is not a destination for tourists. It's just a town in Wales. Tenby is and Saundersfoot and Broadhaven are the so it's just going to become, well, basically a derelict theme park eventually, unless, and you just mentioned Bluestones. Bluestones has got a connection to the original owners. They could could, I'm not saying they're even interested, but they could purchase it and it become part of the Bluestone development, but with day passes,
Yeah.
so that people who are not staying at Bluestones can come. So Bluestones residents get a discount, general public not such a discount. Now I would be happy if they said we don't want the whole park, we'll just take the perimeter to the edge of the lake, which incorporates Megaphobia.
That's it. Yeah.
And we'll save Megaphobia, because William, who's at Bluestones, of course, he's part of the original duo that signed the check to buy the thing. So he's got a financial interest in it, and he bought it.
Yeah.
So buy it back.
You think there's a bit of a heartstrings thing
That's
there
what I'm
for him
hoping.
as well.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to see that. He doesn't want to look out of his office window every morning and see Megaphobia gradually deteriorating.
Yeah.
But it's like you say, with all of this, it's a business decision at the end of the day, and it's got to make financial sense.
Yeah. If Bluestones are going to say, we're going to buy that land off them, which might cost a few million with the rides and so on, how many people extra do you think? Now, if Bluestone's doing nicely anyway with its occupancy rating, how many extra people is this going to bring in? Is it going to justify this investment? And if not, it's not worth buying.
No. As much as we might want it saved.
Yeah, having us come every year with 200 or 300 people is not going to keep a park running.
No. Well, it will be interesting for us to keep an eye on and see if anything happens. I really hope that we don't just watch that park kind of go the way of Camelot and get people going in, graffitiing it all, and everything slowly rotting away. That'll be quite heartbreaking for someone who grew up with the park. Just in terms of other similar parks in the UK, I know, Andy, you've got a bit of a campaign at the moment where you're kind of calling on us as enthusiasts as well to, like you say, go and support these parks. And if you've got a park on your doorstep, just go and visit it. Yeah,
go get it, because it's easy to sit at home, say negative things. Just stop doing that. Go out, go to your local park. If they don't get, particularly the family run, the corporate ones aren't safe, but the family run parks are more at risk. If you live near Great Yarmouth, go to it. If you live near Paultons, go to it. If you live near Blackpool, go to it. Gulliver's, Drayton, any of them. I saw that Pleasurewood Hills made a bit of a loss. Do we want to lose that park? I know it hasn't got a wooden coaster, but do we want to lose that park? No, we haven't got enough to lose. So get out and go to them, and instead of saying they're too expensive, and look at the value for money overall. What do you get for your money? And particularly if you buy a season pass. As soon as you've been most season passes, apart from early ones, if you've been twice, you're getting your money back.
Yeah.
Do it. If you can go more than once a year, do it. Buy the season pass. Go to the park, support them, and encourage people to go to them.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we'll just be having this conversation in another year about another park. Well, it's been great chatting to you again, Andy. In terms of the Coaster Club for 2025, I guess this is going to be interesting for you because, like you say, you usually do a big Oakwood trip in August. Have you replaced that with something else? No, I was determined it wasn't Folly Farm's fault, and they should not suffer of us not coming. And also, I was aware that I announced my dates a year ahead to give time, and people have already booked. And actually, going back to something you said earlier about the employment at Oakwood, the staff and things, of course, the knock-on effect of this is the hotels, the B&Bs, the guest houses, local petrol stations, local shops. They are all going to suffer because less people will come. So I was determined that we were still going to support Folly Farm and Heatherton's. So we're still having our weekend. It's obviously not going to be called Mega Glow Mania because that would be too sad. But we're going to have our a day at Folly Farm, and we're going to have our exclusive fair session. And I asked the members first. I sent an email, said, just let me know if you're still interested, because it's not cheap renting fairgrounds for a few hours. I need to be sure. But I got the numbers I required within a day. People saying, amazing. No, we're still interested, and we'll do Heatherton's. We'll do that. We'll just miss the main event, which will be a shame. But I just didn't want to lose out. But what we are doing is we're, as part of my campaign now, we are I've quickly put Great Yarmouth on the calendar this year to support Great Yarmouth this year, and we'll start doing more of that. I want to do Wicksteed Park.
Yeah.
because they're at risk as well.
Yeah, we mentioned them last week.
Yeah, so I want to do an event there, and if we can get 100, 200 people there, it all helps.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
We've got to support these little parks, otherwise they're all going to go.
Yeah.
And as we said, I think the last time you were on, if you join the club and go along to one of these events, you're at least going with like-minded people as well.
Yeah.
So if your family might be like, I'm not interested in going to some little park that might be a bit further away, you can at least go with other people who are interested in doing that.
Yeah, we are very much. I never say that we are coaster enthusiasts who want to know about the nuts and bolts. We never do that. We are a social club united by our love of coasters. And if you want to come to a park and ride with like-minded people and just have a good time, then that's what we do best. And we've had 20 marriages in the club, people who've met other enthusiasts in the club, which is a better success rate than Priscilla's blind date all those years. So.
We know that you're a staunch supporter of UK theme parks and theme parks in general, and especially wooden coasters. So it's always good to chat to you. And I know you're super passionate about all of this. So it's been great to have you on talking about Oakwood. We're all going to miss it. We've got.
It's very sad.
We'll always keep that little flame burning until we're told otherwise that something might happen with Megaphobia. But who knows what the future holds. And like we said, if you can get out and visit your smaller parks and go and support them this summer, go and do it. Great value for money. We will be back very soon with another episode of Parkcast. If you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button and you'll get a notification every time we release a new episode. And let us know what you think. If you've got any thoughts or comments, our messages are always open on our social channels. For now, though, we've been Parkcast.
Parkcast, the UK's original theme park podcast.